Welcome, everybody. It's Sunday, and we are here for another version of our Overcoming Overeating, and we're going to be on step 12 tonight, which is a really great step where we really kind of go over everything. This is where we tie all the steps that we've done before up until this time, and I've been saying this every week, and I will repeat again that no matter where you are in your process, it doesn't matter. All the steps work together. And so even if you haven't been working any of them, it's really good to listen and learn and be open to what I'm going to be talking about, because I'm going to do an overview of all the steps a little bit, because that's what step 12 really is about, practicing the principles. So the step is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We try to practice to carry the message to other overeaters and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. So it's sort of like three parts. So first of all, we are recognizing that we've had a spiritual awakening, which again, some people will say, well, I don't feel like I've had a spiritual awakening. And I want you to just hang with me, because you don't have to be all fixed. None of us we're not all fixed. We're in a process of being transformed. And sometimes the transformation happens slowly, and we just notice ourselves starting to open up to change. And so just be with me in this, that wherever you are, if you're just awakening, that's the beginning of a transformation. But so it's the spiritual awakening, it's the beginning of helping others, and it's the practicing the principles in all of our affairs. And this is the result of working the steps to practice the steps until they become the way that you think and the way that you live. And it's just like for those of us who have been walking in the Lord, we do Bible studies and we read and study the Word, and we try to get the Word inside of us so that it becomes how we think and how we breathe and how we live. Please forgive me, but I have doggy business to attend to, crying doggies. I kind of knew tonight was going to be a fun dog night here. So now I have another one. Are you going to go too? All right, 2 dogs at the door. All right. Sorry, everyone. I have 2 dogs and no other help. So it's just me and Charlie and Cooper, and they're being a little fussy. Right on time for us. So anyway, so we were saying, so it's 3 parts: spiritual awakening, transformation, and then it's the helping others. Again, wherever you are, you have no idea how, even if you're just at the beginning, you still have something to give another person. Even if it's just to be honest about where you are, then if you help another person to see the truth, like when we say, I have a problem and they have a problem, and we both confess our problems, it's sort of the beginning of freedom. And so that honesty and that openness, and even if you could just give a person the little bit that you have, that is actually worthwhile and valuable. And we start to change as we kind of, you know how they, like if you take the light and you light another person's candle, it becomes brighter, and hope grows as we give away what we have, even when we're just giving away a little. And if you read the history of the 12-step programs, what you see is people helping people, and we understand it is definitely a we thing. People get better by giving it away, and that's a lot of what this step is about, is giving it away. And I am going to kind of talk about the whole thing together, but this is really one of the highlight things, is the importance of sort of stop questioning your value or your ability. I think a lot of people feel like, well, if I'm not all together, then what do I really have to give? Or people are shy, or they're too afraid, and they don't feel, they doubt themselves. And this can happen even I've worked with people, and I was this way myself. I think I didn't feel competent to give anything to anyone. And I was kind of pushed by people who were supporting me to help other people, even though I didn't feel ready. And I'm quite sure that it was because I did start helping other people that I started growing stronger. And and even though I wasn't all better yet. So I think even just the idea of just sort of reaching out your hand and reaching out to support somebody else, it's a super helpful thing to do. So I want to encourage you to listen and to think about, like, even if it's just to like I said, to share a little, to tell a little bit of your story, or if somebody's never heard about recovery and you could tell them a little bit about recovery, you could maybe change their life the way that your life is beginning to be changed. And then it feels really good and really empowering to have been a part of that process for someone else. So basically, then the whole thing that's sort of like the deep sort of message of this 12th step, which is practicing these principles in all of our affairs. As we kind of go through, just recognizing the whole 12-step process. Now, I'm giving this to you after years and years and years of studying the steps. So I want you to understand that, so that you don't look at this and feel overwhelmed or feel confused or feel like I don't get this. It's like too much to get. I didn't get it at all in the beginning, and now I get it because it's just how I think. And but I learned from studying and reading and practicing. So now it's second nature. So I want to kind of help you see it all together, because the steps feel like a lot, but when you start to think of it all together as one process, one transformational process, starting with admission of, I have a problem, I can't fix this on my own, I'm weak. And we start there. And then we realize we need help from a power greater than ourselves, because our power fails. When it comes to food, we can't do it. So we need God to help us. And then in the third step, we surrender and our lives to God, our whole lives, not just the food, but everything, and start depending on and surrendering everything over to God. And that's sort of the beginning of our recovery, is getting into a humble place of dependence. And then we get into the working steps 4 through 9, where we do the house cleaning, the deep house cleaning in step 4, where we go down deep. And at that point, with God's help, again, remembering all the way through the thread of depending on God, because we don't do any of the steps without God and without support. Because that's really, really important, not to try to do this alone. And in the 4th step, we do that deep house cleaning, where we look at all the fears and insecurities and the jealousy and the anger and the bitterness. And then in the 5th step, we tell another person and we humbly talk to God about our the character defects and our shortcomings. And when we really look at ourselves honestly, without guilt and shame, because we have mercy and grace. And the reason why it's so important to keep tying back to God is because I have somebody like this now who really doesn't have a relationship with God. And because of that, when she's going through her 4th step, she's just full of shame. And so if you just look at your character defects and your shortcomings without God and without understanding his mercy, you know that you are going to feel ashamed. So it's so important to keep God in mind as you go through the process, so that you have his mercy and grace all the time, knowing that he loves you and he's forgiven you, and that you can go through this knowing that you've got him holding your hand all the way through. So, and then the 5th step, you turn to him and you tell another person. In step 6 and 7, you become ready for him to start removing your shortcomings, and then asking him humbly to remove your shortcomings. And this is where we take it from the food problems into all the emotional baggage and all the stuff inside, the mental mess. And we start inviting God to start to change us, to transform us. And we start to realize that there's so much more going on than our problem with food, so much more. And that we really need to start depending on God for all the stuff that we feel guilty about and that we walk around beating ourselves up for, that we just need to start inviting him to help us for all these things, to get humbly asking him for help with everything in our lives. And then in steps 8 and 9, where we make amends, and we make the list of people we need to make amends with. And then in 9, we start to make amends. This is where we straighten our relationships out with people who we have problems with, people who we're resentful towards, people who we have issues with that that are unresolved, and we start to make things right with people. We start to get our attitudes right towards other people, and we start to let go of grudges and various things, to understanding all the way through that we need to forgive, and we need to ask forgiveness from people who we've harmed. And so I'm making it sound really easy. I understand this is a lifetime process, but I'm just kind of going through the whole thing, because as we get to step 12, well, first I want to get to 10, because that's up to 9. 10 is the daily inventory, where we keep our house clean. And 11 is where we practice prayer and meditation, constantly working on our relationship with God, growing closer to God, depending on God, realizing that, I feel, and I don't know if I said this when I talked about step 11, but I feel like God's love is the answer. It is the food. It is what we always needed. I think learning to live in God's love and to feed on God's love and to let God's love sort of fill our heart is such an important part of this whole process. Just letting ourselves kind of meditate on the word and enjoy his presence, but seeking his help for all the things in life that we're facing all the time. So it's living in God's love, living in a place where we're dependent in prayer and meditation. And then when we get to 12, it's practicing all of these things on a regular basis, so that this is now the way that we live our lives. It's not just something that we went through in this workbook, but to live in a transformed life, so that we're not using food, but we're now always sort of kind of taking making regular effort to work on letting go of grudges, or facing our fears, or forgiving when we need to, or when we have a wrong, that we make it right. If we see an attitude, or we find ourselves feeling like feeling like a bratty child on the inside, and we have a demanding attitude, or we just find ourselves having tantrums, we have to make these, understand how to kind of straighten up, so to speak, by turning things over and getting ourselves to grow spiritually, to start to put spiritual growth ahead of having our instincts or instant gratification, right? With food and the way that we thought before this process, we might have felt like, I just need to feel better. I just need a fix. I can't tolerate pain. And we just look for a way for the pain to stop. And when you start to work this sort of a process, it's a different way of thinking. It's a way of embracing sort of whatever you're going through. If you're going through pain or grief or sadness or some kind of difficulty, to learn to use spiritual tools as a way of growing spiritually, which is a different way of managing than just trying to cut pain off. Or just trying to feel better, just because I think that's the instant gratification way. The old way is just make me feel better rather than grow spiritually. And it's making the spiritual life the priority instead of the fix. And so we see our troubles, because I think that the reality is that we all have sickness, we all have death, we all have financial challenges. We all have relational conflicts and just people who hurt us. There's no one who gets out of that. We're all living through the pandemic. But I think for those of us, and there was a research, in the AA 12 step, I actually listened to this, I posted it, but they talk about a research that was done on alcoholics, and I think most food addicts would agree with this, that for us, we're so much like alcoholics. There was some research done saying that they were looking at what were the similarities of alcoholics. And they said that alcoholics tend to be emotionally immature and childish and emotionally sensitive, grandiose, having unreasonable fears, and anxiety and deep inferiority, and that we would cover up in different ways. And I have never met anybody in my years and years of practicing, and including myself, that isn't in some way a little bit sensitive. We're sensitive. That's why we need something to make the pain stop, because we're a little more sensitive. But I think to understand that and to know what to do with that, there are wonderful spiritual tools to help us to grow, and to recognize that we can use these tools and we can become healthy emotionally and not be children in the way that we respond to pain and to suffering. So the more you practice these things, the stronger that you become as a person. And so I know in the beginning it can feel really impossible. And I know a lot of people feel that way, like it's just too much and it's too overwhelming. But I really want you to trust me. If you take this process and you just keep doing it, eventually you will learn not to be afraid of your feelings. You will learn to handle your feelings with the tools that are given, with support of others, and with the love of others, and with the love of God, and with wonderful new ways of thinking that are handed to us through the 12-step process and the programs that are like the recovery groups, and of course the Word. But it's a choice. We have to choose. We can either stay like we are, which, believe me, I've sat with clients who have said, I'd rather eat than have to go through this emotion, than feel my feelings or face my pain, because it feels too scary. But I think in most cases, those people really don't understand the love of God. And then so I really keep pointing us all back to Him, because if you know His love, then you know you can get through anything, whatever it is. He will help us. And so this is a lifetime practice. No one is going to get perfect at it. I am in no way perfect. I struggle every day to, deal with whatever comes up in my life. I don't like to feel my feelings either, but I'm glad for tools, and I'm glad for God that He helps me. I know I don't have to use food, and I don't. I know that even if I have to tough it out, that this too shall pass, and that I can rely on God, and I can rely on my support system, and that I can get through. And I've been through a lot. For anyone who knows, I have been through a lot, and I don't have to use food. And I don't have to have my needs met immediately. I can wait until I find a healthy way of managing. And so, that may mean that I have to, tough it out a little bit, but eventually a better answer will come than some short-term fast fix that will only lead me to negative consequences. So I want to encourage you, just, this is a process of learning to live humbly, learning to live in right relationship with God. And it's a process where there are people everywhere. If you're not hooked into a recovery group, there are people all over the world that are doing this, and you don't have to learn this all by yourself. If you're not using support, please get support and let people lead you. Get a sponsor. I'm thinking of starting a group or maybe some couple groups, maybe for people who want a little bit more personalized care, so that people can not just be on Facebook, but actually get involved in groups. And so I would certainly welcome, if you're interested, let me know, private message me or contact me through my, Gmail, drrhona@gmail.com. And I, would be interested to know if you're interested, because I think it's important if you're going to do this. It's not going to happen magically. This is work, but it's totally worth it. Your life could be totally different. You can actually live free and sanely, and have peace and freedom. So it's totally worth it. Just don't quit and keep going. And I'm going to leave some messages in the next week. I know this is step 12, but I'm not going to quit on this group. And so I'll continue to offer other talks on different topics, and I would like to hear from you what topics you might like for us to talk about. So if you have anything as we've been going, like are there things you would like for us to talk about, any topics that you felt like I'd like you to cover a little bit more, please let me know, and I will try to make talks that will fit what you are asking. Okay, so I want to read the scriptures because I know these are some great scriptures in step 12. Of course, all the scriptures are good, but I want to read a couple for us. So Philippians 4:9, what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. See, just practice these things and the God of peace will be with you. How powerful. But the thing is, it's not going to just happen. Peace doesn't happen. You have to practice these things to get it. So you got to hear that, right? Sometimes I think we get mad because we don't just have some sort of automatic thing. It says you have to practice these things. You learn what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me. Practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. 1 Thessalonians 5:14, and we urge you, brothers, admonish the idle, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with them all. Got to help other people, and don't be worried that you don't have it together. I'm telling you, it changes your life. 1 Corinthians 9:22, to the weak I became weak that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all people that by all I might save some. Isaiah 40 verse 1, comfort my people, says your God. I'm telling you, you give to others and it will come back to you. It's an amazing principle. Genesis 2:18, and I'm saying this to you folks who I know this is a disease of isolation. They say that all the time. Food addiction, all addictions are isolation. And it says here, then the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. So of course we all take that as marriage, but I think it fits here that we should not be alone. And I can tell you for sure, people get better in community. So let people in. Don't try to do this by yourself. I'm here. Reach out. And I'm sending you all love and prayers for victory. And I'm still here. We're going to keep going. I'm not exactly sure altogether what the days are going to look like in the days ahead. But please do let me know what you would like to see. And we'll keep going. All right. And I'm going to click off and see what's going on. I can't see if anybody has like a notes or messages going on. I can never see it on my phone. And I don't know why Facebook Live doesn't really let you it's just a weird kind of thing the way they have it set up. So when you're doing it in a private group, they don't let you see things. So I'm going to go into the group. And if you guys have questions or comments, I will see it there. And I will comment back. Okay, so all right, have a great week. God bless.